shift this to what we're actually going to be talking about
let's
today.
Do that.
So this is Functionally Literate. I'm
That's
Ryan.
What we are. I should get my notebook out. It's got my notes in it.
I'm Ryan, and you are?
I am Zach. How's it going, everybody? I'm Chris. Hi, Chris.
Chris, our sound guy and DM on weekends.
Thanks, Chris.
So I am woefully unprepared, but I think that's okay because I think you are very prepared.
I'm woefully prepared.
Right.
All right.
And so here's what I'm going to bring to the table, and then we'll talk about what you're going to bring to the table, and then we'll do it.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I spent all day in a truck listening to stories about Greek gods in Stephen Fry's lovely British voice.
Always good.
And jumping around a bit because I was thinking about we want to talk about gods and heroes.
Yes.
And so part of the Greek myths is the heroes. So the first, I realized, no, I don't want to talk anymore about gods. I know what I want to do about gods. I want to focus on Hera's wedding.
Yes.
Which is, fun fact, a double wedding. But anyways. But I realized that's really all I wanted to discuss as far as the gods go, because that was a busy day.
Right. So what I wanted to talk about, it does focus more on the gods. There is a hero story in there.
Sure.
The first one is the story of Prometheus stealing the fire and the consequences of.
Oh, yeah. That's a good story.
Which is the creation of woman. And the hilariously...
Right, because Pandora's Box is also in that.
And the hilariously unfair portrayal of women.
Yeah.
It's like, I almost felt bad laughing at it, but it is hilariously bad. I mean, it's... Now, anyone who's had, like, a crazy ex-girlfriend is like, no, I've been there. But those are few and far between.
Yeah.
Like, and this just sort of writes it off as like, that's just women.
Can I tell you my thoughts on Pandora real quick?
Go
like
ahead.
having it's been a little bit since I've listened to that story, but I know exactly what you mean because it's wildly unfair. Pandora was set up to fail. She was set up to fail. The mistake that she made, a man could have just as easily made. That was a human thing Pandora did. Mm-hmm. Not a dumb woman thing. Like, oh, how dare you eat the apple? Right.
Exactly.
Like, that was literally what it was.
So I want to talk about that one. Then I'd love to talk about Zeus's wedding. The only two stories I know from Zeus's wedding are the ones you told me about, which are Melissa or Melisius and the bees. I've seen like
Melissa.
I've seen like 8 different names.
Okay.
And Melissa doesn't sound very Greek to me, and I saw Melisius. I was like, that sounds Greek. That might be.
Yeah, when you said that, I was thinking that's probably the same character.
Yeah. I mean, they always go through different
Melissa,
names. And I mean, there's also like 6 different versions of the story.
Yeah.
In one of them, she's already a bee. In one of them, the bees taught her how to do this, and she's a nymph. There's differences. And then the story of Chelone.
I don't know that one.
It's the turtle.
Chelone the turtle? Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I've never heard that one. I want to hear that one.
It's a good one.
Okay. So,
those are both etiological myths that just sort of explain like the origin of things. That's
okay. So that's what you've meant.
Yes, they're myths that try to explain the origin of something. And so technically the story of Pandora's box is an etiological myth of women. Yeah. That's where women came from.
Sure.
It's a sad beginning for women.
I mean, it's
arguably sadder for men.
It should be noted it's not all sad.
It's not all sad. It's not.
Just the ending is sad.
Well, and the thing is, I guess we'll get into it.
We will.
And then the other one was Theseus and the Minotaur.
Yeah, I thought about listening to Theseus, but I know that one. I don't need to re-listen to that one.
And so you listen to Stephen Fry. That's how you got your information. My sources, I have the old Ovid's Metamorphosis. the Penguin Classics edition.
Yeah, I cracked that open and looked at where you were reading at, and I was like, wow, I want to read this book.
Yeah, it's good.
Can I show you the passage that...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was reading... Okay, so this is, for everyone wondering, this is Metamorphosis. So Zach right now is on page 300, 301. So the first line that I read that stuck out to me was on page 300, Jupiter wasn't your father. He didn't seduce your mother disguised as a bull. That story's a lie. A genuine bull was your true begetter. Take your revenge now, Nissus, my father. I was like, whoa.
We love those classic disses. No. It wasn't Jupiter disguised as a bull. Your dad was an actual animal. You suck. So that's where we get the story of Theseus and the Minotaur and Daedalus and Icarus, which is sort of the continuation of that,
continuation of the story.
And it's very short, so I figured we'd touch on that because it's kind of a hero's tale. And then we get the story of Prometheus and Pandora from the poems of Hesiod, Theogony, and Works of Days. So it's kind of split up in that in Theogony it just talks about Prometheus taking the fire and then the creation of Pandora as punishment to man.
Yeah.
But it doesn't talk anything about her jar.
Yeah.
And so then in Works and Days, like the very beginning, Hesiod starts writing, well, this is the story of how all the woes came into the world, and it was Pandora and her jar, and she took the lid off. So they're kind of split up.
Wait, who wrote that?
They're all by Hesiod.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So it surprised me when looking into this stuff how little actual source material there is.
What do you mean?
Like, think of all the stories you know about Greek mythology.
Right.
And almost all of them come from these two books. It's like these, Homer's work, so the Iliad and the Odyssey, and some plays.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And there's a very good reason for that, which is storytelling came before writing.
Right.
So
No, I understand that. It blows my mind that we have so many stories,
yeah,
and so few sources for those stories.
Yeah.
It's like the same five guys have collectively put together everything we know about Greek religion.
Do you know what I think, genuinely? I think that it is still an evolving mythology.
Oh, yeah.
Because perfect example would be Rick Riordan. Mm-hmm. Okay? Those are going to be popular stories, I think, for a very long time. And I would not be surprised if 2,000 years from now, someone legitimately thought Rick Riordan was like,
yes,
someone, an authority on these stories.
Now we do have writing now, so we have the benefit of that.
That's true.
Is that somewhere someone wrote down that's fiction?
Sure.
No one necessarily did that prior to.
Right.
Like some things just, and I'm not saying that any of these, like someone said they were fiction. The point was just that over time those facts get sort of obscured. So like there's an example I love to use about like how history just hides everything from you. Is that for a really long time we couldn't figure out Roman concrete.
What do you mean?
Like they had a recipe, and we thought we had the recipe, and yet every time we tried it, it didn't work. And we couldn't figure it out.
Was the answer rebar?
No.
Oh, okay.
The answer was when it told you to mix in water, you used salt water. Because you're on the Italian peninsula.
The Mediterranean's right there.
Of course, you have salt water. Like, you're not going to use your very limited supply of fresh, drinkable water for your concrete. That's stupid. You would use your salt water. And that makes a stronger concrete.
Oh,
obviously, you would do that. But they didn't write salt water. They just put water. So now imagine earthly civilization collapses. We're all wiped out. There's very few records left. And an alien species discovers the planet and what's left of it, and a cookbook. And this recipe calls for flour and eggs.
That could mean a lot of things.
The number of things on this planet that lay eggs how long until they figure out it's chicken eggs? But when have you opened up a cookbook and it said chicken eggs?
If you're talking about a historian, it's probably going to take them a little bit longer. Like if they were looking at the present day. Anyways, we're talking about it from a historian's point of view. Yeah, it would take them a long time.
Yeah, it's there's common sense things that people just don't write down.
Yeah.
Because, duh.
It's common sense
But
to
then
them.
when those people disappear,
yeah,
we're left going, what the fuck's that mean? We don't know. We have no idea. So, all right. So, do you want to start with
the wedding?
Let's start with the wedding.
Okay, so here's the deal. Hera is the queen of heaven. She's married to Zeus, the sky father.
Also her older brother.
Also her older brother.
Her younger brother, technically.
You know, incest doesn't matter with the Greek gods.
It does. Incest doesn't matter with gods in general.
You're right. Incest doesn't matter with gods for a very good reason, which is there's not that many of them.
Yeah.
They don't really need to worry about inbreeding.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like...
Well, you got to think. The argument for inbreeding is that it degrades the genetic code.
Gods don't have that.
Right.
Gods
how
have
do you degrade the perfect genetic code?
Yeah.
You know, like you can't. It's incorruptible.
Yep. And it kills you when you consume it.
Yeah.
Probably because I think when it's like drinking bleach, basically, because it's trying to purify you and make you into a god.
And you just aren't. You're
Nah.
just not. You're a flawed and imperfect vessel.
You were made out of clay.
Right.
For fun.
Right. So, unless you were a woman, in which case you were made out of clay for revenge.
God damn it! We did say earlier that, like, fuck Hesiod for writing that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
In case it's not clear, we don't agree. I just find it very
That's why
funny.
I'm laughing. Lost the thread. Right, Hera. She's also the goddess of marriage, and that's why, of course, she had to get married, which is what the lead into this, right? So she gives birth to Hephaestus.
Yes.
And Hephaestus is, unfortunately, just the ugliest baby. And Hera is offended by his ugliness, kicks him off Mount Olympus.
Yeah.
Just kicks him right off. He falls all the way down.
Can't have the ugly kid.
Well, you know, joke's on her, because it turns out that boy is a genius. That boy is the god of forges, and he can make anything. So he makes a magic golden net that nobody can, like, you know, figure out. He throws that shit on top of Hera. And no one can get her out of there, not even Zeus. And so Hera... Or maybe it was Zeus. It's probably Zeus. Zeus is like, hey, I'm going to just put a challenge out there. Anyone who can get my wife out of this net can marry Aphrodite, the goddess of love. It was kind of like killing two birds with one stone type thing. He really needed to get his wife out of this net. And also, everyone, including himself, wanted to bone the goddess of love.
Well, of course. She's the goddess of love.
Right. And it was...
Is she really doing her job if you're not like, what are you doing later?
Right. So this solves a lot of problems for Zeus. It's a good political move, and also it stops Hera from getting mad jealous at him for wanting to bone down on Aphrodite. So, you know, it works out great. Ares is currently with Aphrodite. So he's got to get her out of that net.
Right.
He can't. He just can't. Nobody can. Like, Zeus fucking hurled thunderbolts at her, like, as just a last-ditch effort, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So, then in comes Hephaestus.
Well, you got to think design process. Hephaestus is like, all right, I throw Hera in a net. I mean, first thing's going to happen, thunderbolts. You know? Like, Zeus is going to try to get her out. So that's problem one you design around. So let's make it thunderbolt proof. Second, I know she's boning this Ares dude. He's mad beef. So got to make it unbreakable because he's just gonna try to rip it or
can't be cut.
Yeah, you just kind of run through the list of like most plausible scenario. Let's make sure it doesn't fail under that circumstance.
Can't be burned up.
Scenario.
Yeah. So, that doesn't work. And I think like just a myriad of demigods, minor demigods also tried to get Hera out. Like I'm pretty sure everyone that possibly could tried. And then so once it was pretty clear that like nobody was gonna do it, Hephaestus walks in. He's like, hey mom, do you want out of that net? And she's like, yes, please get me out of this net. And then he pulls like a specific stitch and it all comes undone. He's like, I'm gonna marry Aphrodite now. And Hera's pissed.
Well, yeah, because now the ugly kid gets goddess of love.
She is so extremely, unbelievably pissed. She says to Zeus, fine, but we're getting married too. We never actually had a ceremony.
Oh, I love the pettiness of it.
And so, therefore, there was the first ever double wedding.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Hera gave birth to Hephaestus.
Yes.
Is Zeus his father?
I believe so, yes. No, actually, yes. Any child of Hera's was with Zeus because she's the goddess of marriage and therefore the goddess of monogamy. She does not cheat.
Okay.
All of her children are from Zeus.
Okay. Why would the child of Hera and Zeus be so ugly?
I don't know.
What's the narrative purpose of that?
Well, I'm going to draw from Encanto. The grandmother wanted the perfect house.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore that includes perfect children.
Yep.
I think that's kind of like her fatal flaw, right? Her fatal flaw is she cannot abide imperfect things.
Right.
Like in her household. And so naturally she gave birth to Hephaestus.
Right. Okay. So she was trying too hard.
Yeah.
To have the perfect baby, and so she had to be punished.
Yeah, that was her tell. That was like what the fates did to her, probably.
Gotcha. I could see that. It's the harder you try to force something, the more likely you are to mess it up.
Right. And in fact, that's something that Hermes and Athena told Perseus. They were like, concentrate, but don't stress out about it.
Yeah.
If you stress out too much, you're not going to do it. And if you concentrate too much, you're not going to do it. You got to be calm and concentrating. Calmly concentrate. Hera did not do that.
No. She very stressfully concentrated.
I imagine that's where they learned the lesson from.
That said, he is a genius.
He is. He understood when he married Aphrodite that she was going to cheat on him with Ares.
I mean, that would seem obvious when you're like, you win your wife in a contest from her boyfriend. You're like,
right.
Like, I'm not counting on loyalty here because, I mean, this is just how this happened.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's it.
Like you don't get a mail order bride and you're like, most loyal woman I've ever met.
He understood that, and I think he still did it because he got to marry the hottest woman ever.
Yeah, well, and I just think, what were his odds if he was really that repulsive?
Right.
Of getting married any other way?
Right. Yeah, I mean, not for a very long time. Probably would have had to have married a mortal woman. That
okay, so who's your favorite character in this story?
In this story?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, definitely Hephaestus, but this isn't even about Hephaestus. This is the backstory.
Yeah.
My favorite character that I'm going to talk about is probably going to be Metis.
Okay. All right. I was just curious. I want to keep an ear out for
Metis
and pay more attention to that.
Metis gets involved later. So, because really I'm telling 4 different stories.
Yeah.
Right? But, like, I can't talk about the wedding without talking about this.
Why there was
It's like why there was a wedding at all.
Yep.
So they have the wedding day. It's obviously at Mount Olympus.
Yeah.
Fucking everybody's invited.
Where do you hold the wedding other than heaven, you know?
Right. Like, literally everybody is invited except for, like, the main titans that they fought. Yeah, like, second generation titans are there.
Yeah.
So, first, Hephaestus and Aphrodite get married. I mean, it's for them.
Yeah.
So they're first. Zeus and Hera, though, they're second, and of course theirs is way bigger.
Well, bigger budget.
Yeah.
Hephaestus, I mean, in his defense, was just born. So.
So that's where it's murky, right? The way it's told, he does, like, age to adulthood first, but for gods, that process is very short.
Well, and things get a little wishy-washy with timeline in
when you're talking about gods.
Well, because sometimes there's, like, stories that I've read that have Athena in them.
Yeah.
That, best I can tell, happened before other certain stories that happened before Hephaestus split open Zeus's head and birthed Athena.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, Athena was there, but then she got born later. And it's like,
you're skipping ahead because this story is about that.
Yeah.
So they have the ceremony. The reception is the big deal, though, because everything is happening at the reception.
Well, that's every wedding.
So
I don't know if you've been to a wedding. The ceremony, you're like, meh. But the reception,
yeah,
that's good.
The reception is where everything happened. Specifically, the biggest thing that happened was a food contest. Zeus was like, okay, everyone in the land, I challenge you to make the most delicious thing that you can make and offer it to me and my wife, and we will vote on who made the best thing. And whoever wins, I may grant you a wish.
I may. Love the ambiguity.
Well, no, actually, the exact wording, and actually the exact wording is important. I will allow you to ask a wish of me.
Oh, Zeus.
So everybody hears
the
that.
Generous father of clouds.
Everybody hears that, and they're like, awesome, we get to make a wish.
Yeah, you get to make one. No one's promising a granted wish, okay? So, you just get to make a wish, and I won't smite you for audacity's sake.
So everybody, like, brings out, like, all of the most interesting things they could possibly bring out, and I don't remember any of them. I wish I had taken notes, but I was strapped for time. Yeah. It's fine. Because the winner is the most important thing.
Yeah.
The winner was this creature called Melissa, who brings to Zeus an amphora, which I don't know what an amphora is. I assume it's a jar.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So in the amphora is this, really pungent but not too cloying smell. It's like this amber color, and Zeus like lifts some off of his finger, and it's runny but not too runny, and it's like it's sticky but like it's interesting, and he takes a taste of it, and he's like, "This is the best thing I've ever tasted," and it's honey.
Yeah.
This little creature made honey.
Yeah, anyone that's had honey knows
and this creature is really weird, right? Because like it flies, but it looks like it's gonna fall over, and it's like it's big in all the wrong places and small in all the wrong places.
I'm imagining just the goofiest bumblebee, but like with this like sweet next door neighbor smile,
right?
And it's just like, here's my honey. So it's just this adorable little bee. Like, you're so freaking cute. Thanks for bringing that.
So she brings this little amphora of honey and offers it to Zeus and Hera, and they taste it, and they're like, oh, yeah, no contest. They're like, everyone, you all brought excellent dishes, but we've decided that this, what's it called? It's honey. Honey. We've decided this honey it's the best. It wins. And then on the spot, he magically enchants this amphora to never empty and never spoil. And he said, this is the nectar of the gods. It is the drink of the gods. And when mixed with fruit, it will be the food of the gods. Ambrosia. Mm-hmm. So like he officially declares on the spot that ambrosia and nectar is the food and drink of the gods. Right then and there, after tasting some honey.
It's a good impression.
Right. And then, of course, he's like, and now you may ask your wish. And Melissa's, it's a real practical wish. She's like, I want a dangerous weapon that will kill my enemies immediately. And she explains why. She's like, look, there's only one of me, and this takes a really long time to make. Like that amphora right there, that took me 6 weeks to make. And it took me that long because I have to go and collect all of the ingredients and spread it to all the flowers and collect everything and then make it at home. And and because it's so good, everybody steals it from me.
Oh, man.
And so Zeus is like, wait, you want to keep this to yourself? No. Everyone should get to have honey.
Well, I'll say, for all the jerk, awful, misogynistic, tyrannical things Zeus does, he cared that we all got honey.
He did.
He said, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is the food and the drink of the gods. That said, I really think everyone should be able to have this.
The mortal version.
Yeah, well, of course. No. They don't get the Mercedes. You get the Camry.
Right.
You get the little Toyota version.
Yeah. So.
Sorry if I offend anyone that drives a Toyota. They're just not as good as Mercedes, and I feel like we all know that.
So Zeus is like, no, I'm not going to do that. And she's like, but you promised you'd grant a wish. And he was like, and like everybody goes silent because she backtalked a god. She backtalked the god of gods.
Son of Kronos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Titan of time. So, well, anyways, so so everybody goes silent, and Melissa does not realize that she's fucked up. And Zeus is like, I promised that I would allow the winner to ask of me a wish. Nobody said that I was obligated to grant it. So I'm not gonna do what you asked of me, but I am going to make you a queen of your kind. You will have an army of smaller things like you that will help you make this honey. And I will actually give you a deadly weapon. Deadly to yourself. If you ever use this weapon, you will die on the spot. And then this weird barbed thing just came out of her abdomen.
And that's how they got the stinger.
That's how they got the stinger. And it's actually really interesting, and Stephen Fry gets into this. That's literally like when a bee stings someone and then they pull out, it pulls out their intestines.
Yes.
That's why it kills them. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so it's really only deadly to the bee. Like, it hurts.
Yeah. It's like, not, I mean, unless you're really allergic and don't have an EpiPen. Like, it's not going to kill you.
Right.
Unless you get stung a lot.
See, it's my headcanon that, like, sometime after this story, like, someone went on a quest for Melissa and, like, made it so, like, a 20th of people were, like, would die if a bee stung them.
That was Zeus later just being like, all right, that was a little mean. I hope, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what about 5% of the population? 5%?
Yeah.
5%.
So that happens. Like, you know, she was made a queen and she got a weird needle thing. And so she fucking hightailed it out of there.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was that. Because after that happened, Zeus was like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
You know.
So I'm real big into symbolism.
Yeah.
So when you told me this story, I was like, well, I mean, the very first thing I got to look up. According to certain areas in Greece, not necessarily everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know how common the belief was, but some Greeks believed that bees were actually nymphs, not insects. And that sort of explains why some versions of the stories, Melissa's a nymph that becomes the queen bee, not a bee that just gets made queen. But some people think they were the same thing anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
I
They
think
also
Fry talks about that, actually.
believe that they can be messengers of the gods.
Mm-hmm.
So being visited by bees was a good omen.
That makes sense.
Or that bees were actually the souls of the reincarnated dead or not yet born.
Well, symbolically, that makes sense. I mean, honey was clearly highly valued.
Well, and so that then leads me to wonder, what does it mean that the souls of the dead and unborn make the food of the gods?
You know, when you phrase it that way, it sounds really messed up.
It kind of does. I haven't had time to really wrestle with that one. Because, the surface level morbidity of it, you're like, oh, this is just slave labor. You know, this is really bad. But if you think about it in a symbolic sense, they're not literally making the food of the gods. Like,
no.
Honey's not necessarily literally the food of the gods. But what does it mean that the gods, the ideals of a culture, are nourished by the not yet living and the dead?
Well, I think it's because the not yet living and the dead are also an ideal, right? They don't exist in a way, just like the gods don't exist in a way.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see it. Mm-hmm. So you can, it's easy to attribute it to that.
Yeah. So I would take it more as like, well, for the unborn, they are, as of yet, undifferentiated.
Right.
Right? They're not an individual. So they're a part of the unconscious collective, which is the realm of the gods. That's heaven.
Right.
That's where the gods live, in the unconscious collective. And so that's where they come from. And those that are dead are those that return to that. And so the fact that they make the food, I think, would more or less mean that, like, what feeds the belief of the gods is the idea that we are undifferentiated beings that come from somewhere and have to return to something.
Sure.
But I literally just thought of that right now, and I have no idea if that sounds stupid yet.
No, it doesn't. I've heard variations of that before. Like, actually, in one of the books on our list that we're going to get to at some point. So in the Stormlight archives, there's a chapter about this character that can heal people, and he's a cobbler, and he makes shoes for street urchin kids, right? And he's like, while he's doing that, he's explaining to this kid about like how the universe is all just like, you know, before there was many, there was one, and one knew everything, knew all there was, and then one, to have a better appreciation for everything, became many. And one knew everything, many doesn't. Right. Many knows a few things.
Yeah. Collectively, they would know everything, but it's all separated into these little parts.
And then when the many die, they rejoin with the one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. So let's continue with the wedding.
Yeah. So Zeus has just made the food and drink of the gods. He's eating and drinking a lot of it. He may just have been one of the first entities to ever get drunk.
Hell yeah.
But in a godly way.
Right.
So he was filled with a bloodlust, which is pretty normal for Zeus, frankly.
Yeah, well, and, you know, you get drunk, you get a little aggressive.
And so he was not really feeling Hera. He was feeling Metis. Metis was, I think, a second or third generation Titan who helped raise Zeus. Like, she was his teacher, basically.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, I'm not gonna. Are you insane? This is your wedding night. What are you doing? And he chases her. And they take the forms of a bunch of different creatures, and he's transforming into whatever the ideal thing would be to chase after the thing she transformed into, like snakes, lions, whatever. He finally catches her, and there's a couple different interpretations of this. In one interpretation, Metis is like, "You won! Yay! Let's have sex." And then the other version is, well, he raped her. Frank,
it's pretty common in Greek myths.
Yeah. So in this version, it was more or less consensual. It was more of a thing like, well, I mean, you have me, sure. And so then they have pillow talk. And during this pillow talk, Metis is complimenting Zeus about, like, all of the different things he turned into to, like, chase her. And while they're talking about this, Zeus is like, shit, there was a prophecy about this. There was a prophecy about me having a kid with a Titan that could overthrow me. So he goads her and and tricks her into turning into a fly. He basically is like, oh, I'm sure if you turned into this or this, I wouldn't catch you. And so she turns into a fly to, like, be really evasive. And then, of course, he turns into the natural thing to get her, which is a frog, and, eats her. Thing is, these are gods we're talking about. So she transforms into something a bit more metaphysical in his brain. Mm-hmm. And so weeks later, Zeus has the biggest headache. He has the first migraine. And it's just it's the worst. Like,
there's no Midol to help you. You just got to deal with it.
It was something he mused about while having this god-awful migraine. The problem with being at the top is that there's nobody above you to pray to.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's funny.
And so, he consults the other Olympians, the other 11 Olympians. He's like, help me. What do I do? And the answer is split his skull open. Hephaestus makes, like, the sharpest, like, weapon ever.
Yeah.
I think it was, like, a cool axe or something.
Yeah. He's got to cut that out. You just got to relieve the pressure.
And he's like, all right, Zeus.
What's he going to do? Kill you? Come on. You're God.
He's like, pray, Zeus. And so Zeus gets on his knees and, exposes his head, and Hephaestus splits his skull open. And out shoots Athena in just full battle armor.
I mean, Athena as anything less would be disappointing, really.
And then an owl flew and landed on her shoulder.
That's right. That's Archimedes.
Right. Archimedes, who wasn't Archimedes yet, the owl that just happened to be there just flies over, and then
the owl laterally known as Archimedes.
And then Zeus names her on the spot. He's like, Athena. And she's like, Father. And Hera suspects. Mm-hmm. Because Metis never came back.
Yeah, disappeared.
She doesn't know. But she suspects something happened. It's kind of weird that you gave birth to a daughter from your brain.
Yeah.
That's not normal.
Well, I wonder, what's the significance of it being Hephaestus that is the one that can actually help Zeus?
He built something.
It is, but why not? I mean, you just need something to split a head open. Ares could do that. Hermes killed Titans. I mean, surely any of these other gods are powerful enough to break a skull, especially if Zeus isn't defending himself. Mm-hmm. He wants it to happen. So I think, and one thing I've learned about mythology in general is that nothing is accidental. Mm-hmm. So if Hephaestus is the one that does it, there's a reason Hephaestus is the one that does it.
You know, it might have been simply that he was the celebrity god at the time. Because this was like a month later.
Yeah.
This was like a month after the wedding.
Yeah.
But so yeah, since he's a god, he just like put his head back together.
Right. He was just like, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, bud.
And then he was fine. And then migraine's gone.
Give him the old attaboy.
It was literally just he had a brainchild that needed to get out.
Yeah.
And because he was a god, it didn't kill him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could do that when you're immortal and all-knowing.
So what happens to Metis? Well, Metis is in Zeus's brain.
Mm-hmm.
Because Zeus, as this story and many other stories of Zeus, will show you, Zeus is a very impulsive person. Like, he understands what's right and what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But he operates on his impulses. And Metis is why he understands what's right and what's wrong. She's the voice in his head.
The conscience, the Jiminy Cricket.
She's literally his conscience because he didn't have one.
Yeah.
And so whatever he's doing, she's there advising him whether he wants her to or not.
I'll have to think about that for a while.
Yeah.
Do a little bit more research into that. Because that's a very interesting concept. I mean, there's a lot of dynamic relationships there in that, like, what's the relevance of him eating Metis because he knows the prophecy? He's internalizing his problems. That's my first way of reacting to it. Is at some point,
and also doing
fail.
Exactly what his father did.
Right. So it's cycle repeating. That's pretty a common thing in like hero cycle. Is the old hero becomes the new king, becomes the old tyrant, and then a new hero has to come. So like Kronos was the old tyrant. He was defeated by his son Zeus, the new hero who becomes the king. Everything is great. There's the golden age, and then he eventually becomes the tyrant. And he knows that cycle, and he's afraid of the son that's going to kill him. And if you play the God of War games, that's what you do. Yeah. Spoiler alert for God of War game. They've been out for so long. If you haven't played them yet, that's on you.
I've played enough of them.
Kratos, you're the son of Zeus. You kill Ares, and then you kill Zeus.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah. And now he's moved on to the Norse.
Yeah. Pantheon. Now he's taking over new pantheons.
So there's a new play style, which makes it great.
I've seen it was way better. I never liked the old game. They were hack and slash. But we're getting off topic. Point is, Zeus knows the cycle, trying to avoid the cycle.
Yeah.
So he internalizes this problem. And the result is pain.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah.
And so then what's the significance then of the answer to that problem being the son he didn't want?
The son his wife didn't want. Zeus, as I understand it, didn't really get a say in what happened to Hephaestus. That just kind of happened. And Zeus was like, okay.
Well, then, so I would be interested in knowing what Zeus's feelings were on the matter. Because if he doesn't care, that's the same as not wanting it.
That's fair.
Because if you don't want it, you don't care. But if he did care, and then Hera was like, no. I'm like, I don't know. That's a strange occasion that Zeus listens to anyone. So I'm inclined to think because he got kicked off Olympus in the first place and Hera didn't want him, that Zeus probably didn't either.
Yeah, Zeus could have raised a big enough stink. And
you'd think.
Maybe prevented that.
You'd think. But, so this unwanted son, whether by his father or just his mother, the unwanted son, or, the shameful mistake is the answer to internalizing your problems. And the result of facing it with that is whatever you would consider Athena.
Athena is, because they talk about this too, how she's also a god of war.
Right.
But
way better than Ares.
There's a distinction. So Ares is just, he's all about fighting and ruthlessness and combat.
It's winning.
Athena is about tactics. She's also about winning, but not in a bloodthirsty, ruthless way. So I view it as He's the god of masculine war, and she's like a more feminine approach.
Yeah. I mean, that obviously there's a relevance to them being male and female. Like,
There is a relevance. There's a strong. It's not an accident at all.
Yeah, I would say that's fairly accurate without getting too new agey about the ideas of masculinity and femininity.
It's been an issue. It's been a topic in humanity forever. Is the point?
I mean, a long time. So yeah, that's just something I would have to think about more. Read it, take notes. But it's very interesting. I mean, there's so much just in that one story that I feel like means.
I mean, we're already an hour in.
A lot of stuff. And is that the end of the wedding?
That's the end of the wedding.
Well, so there was one more story. It was the story of Calliope.
Okay,
the lazy nymph.
The lazy nymph.
So when the wedding was getting planned,
yeah,
Zeus sends Hermes out, messenger of the gods, to deliver all the invitations.
Absolutely.
And Hermes does this. There is a nymph named Calliope. Loves being at home. She's very lazy. Like this story is where "there's no place like home" saying comes from.
Okay.
Is because Hermes is like, hey, here's your invitation. And she's like, I mean, I don't know, man. I think I'd rather be home.
Oh, no.
Really? Like, she doesn't say that to Hermes' face, because why would you? That's ballsy.
You can't say that.
But anyway, so the wedding comes, and Calliope doesn't show up.
Oh, no.
And Zeus cannot fathom that anyone would have the gumption to stiff him on his wedding day. Which means it must be that Hermes never delivered the letter.
Of course.
And so he's like, the fuck, Hermes? Just everyone but that one. You wanted to ruin my wedding. That's
everyone
what it was.
But what was her name again?
Calliope.
What was she? Like
she was a nymph.
She was just a nymph.
Just a nymph.
Just a nymph.
And Hermes is like, hey man, I delivered all of them. All right? I know I delivered hers. And he's like, she's not here. You better go figure out why. So Hermes comes back and finds her asleep in her bed. Because she'd rather be at home asleep than at Zeus's wedding. And so Hermes said, well, if you love being home so much, you can just take it with you everywhere. And turns her into a turtle. Oh. And that's why turtles carry their shells.
Oh.
They take their home with them everywhere. They're so slow because they're so heavy, and it's a burden.
How did she feel about that? Like it was a burden?
You know, the story stops there.
The story stops there. I imagine
her mind would be like, oh, this is perfect. You know, like if I'm the kind of person that's like, I don't ever want to not be at home, which is almost the person I am now.
Yeah.
I'm very close to just being like, it's 8:30, guys.
I mean, I am that person.
I'd be heading to bed.
Like my wife, she told me before we were married that she wanted to be the host among our friends, and I was like, well, of course. Perfect. Great. Fantastic.
Go places.
Exactly. Like I don't want to go to other people's houses. I want to be at my house. You want this to be the host house? Fantastic.
Oh no.
Of course not the host house.
Mary and I got married. She was just like, I don't want to be the host house. And I'm like, oh, okay, so we'll go visit. She goes, I didn't say that. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is it. We're just each other's best friends forever. No other friends needed. And she goes, we're not already best friends. I said, I'm going to bed. We didn't have that argument that night.
Oh, damn.
But no, so that was one of the ones that I found really interesting, is that they found a way to tie in these ideological myths into Zeus's wedding.
Yeah.
There might be some significance there. I haven't really thought about that.
I imagine there's more than just that.
Yeah. But what I find ironic is that turtle symbolism, almost the world over, but also in Greece, is associated with wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah.
This particular nymph that became the first turtle did not strike me as overly wise and knowledgeable.
The way she was told.
It seemed pretty foolish
to say
to just
no,
snub Zeus.
I'm not going to go to the first ever wedding
of the king of the gods and the goddess of marriage. I think I'm going to pass. I got a booked up tonight. I just imagine she was doing that Grinch thing. She's like, I cancel that again. And so it's interesting that that's the sort of Greek belief of this is how turtles came to be, and then this is what they mean. Unless the idea is that then she grew in wisdom from that experience somehow. So there's that. But
so there's that.
that's the wedding.
That's the wedding.
That's just the wedding.